Okay, so there's an implication that comes along with that. A thought enters the theater of your imagination in relationship to your goal. So you can formulate that in religious language. The spirit that answers your prayers, the nature of the spirit that answers your prayers will be dependent on the nature of your prayer. Yeah, that's for sure. Right.
Yeah.
So imagine that you're harboring feelings of resentment and bitterness as you're plotting your economic pathway forward. And so you're trying to think about what you should do, but you have the spirit of resentment and bitterness sitting on your shoulder. The thoughts that enter your mind are going to be a consequence of your possession by that bitterness to the degree that you've allowed it to shape your goal. So here's a corollary of that. This is stunning. It's a stunning thing to understand. If you orient your aim upward in the highest manner, the spirit that informs your thought will be the spirit of the highest possible aim. And God, that's something to know, man. So that's what a religious practice, a fundamental religious practice is for. It's like, get rid of the corrupt motivation. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. Pray for the salvation of your soul, that you're aiming right, because your aim is going to determine the content of your thoughts. And that is how it works technically. That's how it works neuropsychologically. Your thoughts are the handmaiden of your aim.
Right, which is why we're always worried about sociopaths, because they never abandoned that corrupt motivation.
Yeah, well, they're basically, the best way to think about the narcissists and the hedonists and the histrionic types and the borderlines and the antisocial personalities is that they never matured cortically. So like children come into the world in a way as a bundle of competing subcortical motivations, right? And they're very powerful motivations. Anger, for example, you watch a 2-year-old have a temper tantrum, it's quite the show. And they want short-term immediate gratification. Now what happens as your cortex matures, you transcend those lower order instinctual motivations, that would be the Freudian id, and you start to regulate your behavior in relationship to your own future. So you stop doing stupid, pleasurable things in the moment that will compromise you, and you start to be able to incorporate the views of other people. That's how kids at 3 start to develop the ability to have friends. And the more sophisticated you get, the more other people and their perspectives are part of your perceptions, and the more the future is taken into account in your actions. And the cortex is actually there so that that can happen. And it has to happen in a social context because you have to pick up the society of your peers, obviously. And so conditions like psychopathy, or even power seeking for that matter, are conditions of radical immaturity. And so that's how you explain their emergence. And one of the things that's interesting about that is it provides a very powerful argument against moral relativism. It's like there's a real difference between maturation and immaturity. Maturation is productive and sustainable, and immaturity is divisive and destructive. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Right.
And so, see, it's a different view of mental health, because the classic therapist-produced view of mental health is that mental health is sort of inside you. You know, it's in your psyche, it's in your mind. But it's not. Like, your mental health is the harmony of your existence in relationship to the future and other people, right? And that sense of well-being that can infuse you if you get the balance right isn't a reflection of the proper structuring of your function of your mind or your brain. It's a phenomena that emerges when everything is in its proper place and operating harmoniously. That's what you experience in music. Like, music represents that. Everything in its proper place. That's what Adam is called upon by God to do in the story of Adam and Eve. To subdue the world. Subdue. Everything in its proper place so that the whole structure operates in a harmonious manner. It's a much more expanded view of what constitutes mental health. Anyways, education should serve that, right? And so if you take the staff of Moses that's planted in a single place. The community grows around that. That's the same as the magic wand of Gandalf, that idea of a magic wand. It's the traditional ethos associated with transformation and sacrifice around which communities aggregate themselves. And a proper humanities and religious education inculcates that center structure so that knowledge can be organized around it. The last time we talked, I suggested to you that we see the world through a biblical lens. Literally see it. I mean literally. It structures our perceptions. And I've investigated that far more deeply. And what seems to be the case with a corpus of stories like the biblical library is that if you know the stories, it structures your psyche so that you have a place to put information. And so that enables you to understand the current world and everything that's happening, but to place everything in the right context. And so the transmission of an unbroken cultural edifice, story-based edifice, is the manner in which you solve the alignment problem, unite your society, integrate your psyche, pursue what's meaningful, and protect yourself from chaos and anxiety.